This is Dave Arnold, your host of Cooking Issues, coming to you live from the heart of Manhattan, Rockefeller Center, New York City Newsstand Studios. Joined as usual with John across me. How you doing?
Doing great, thanks.
Yeah, I got Joe rocking the panels. Joe Hazen, what's up?
Hey, how are you? Welcome post Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
Happy
yeah.
holidays.
We're gonna have to go through our, post Thanksgiving either successes or traumas in a minute. Got Nastasia the Hammer Lopez in her new home again, Los Angeles. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. Also in Los Angeles, I believe he's back, is Jackie Molecules. How you doing, Jack Inslee?
All right. I'm back. Yep.
Yeah, and we have again this week from the upper left in Vancouver Island, Quinn. How you doing?
Hey, I'm all right.
Good. And before we get too far into it, special guest on today's show, coming back for the second time, Steve Sando from Rancho Gordo Beans to talk about the Bean Book, which I guess came out when? September? When is it?
September 10th.
Yeah. Nice.
September
nice.
10th.
Nice. And by the way, for those of you that are keeping track, this is a different, you have, well, almost all of your books are on beans. I guess you did one strictly on pozole, which contains, there's not even beans in that, right? It's hominy. So in other words, most of your books are bean oriented, right?
At this point, yeah.
Yeah. And, but
I have the great American novel in me. It's coming, but not right now.
well, would one of the characters be a bean or a bean grower? I mean, they already did the Milagro Beanfield
sure.
War. Remember the Milagro Beanfield War? Yeah. I don't know if that aged well.
Book and movie.
Yeah. I haven't.
I tried to read the book and I got bored to death, so I don't know.
Well, the movie is much shorter. It's only 2 hours or less even. But I can't remember anything about it other than the name. And then when they came out with the tequila named Milagro, I just used to call it Beanfield Wars, even though I couldn't remember anything about the show. And we never carried the tequila. So who knows? I have no idea.
That's very funny.
Anyway, so the Bean Book is entirely different from, different shape, different length, different text from the original Heirloom Bean Book of 2009 or 2008 or whatever it was. It's a different book. So if you already own the other book, don't think that you can get away with not getting the new book. Correct?
No, when we did the new book, I said I want it to be the joy of cooking of beans and really something you keep forever. And Heirloom Beans, the first book was great, but this is definitely has more gravitas, I think.
Wow, you're the Daniel Patterson of your own books. You're like, if you like the old book, you don't know anything. You got to get the new book.
Funny.
Anyway,
For sure.
So anyone who knows, inside chef joke. But the all right, so we'll get into that. But here's the part of the show because it was just Thanksgiving. So let's talk about. Did anyone do a non-bird based Thanksgiving in the crew here? All birds. I was all bird.
All bird.
All bird. I saw your bird. I saw a picture of your bird, John. How'd you do it?
Spatchcocked, salt, pepper, a couple of the seasonings, and then just on the grill.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, came out real well.
Okay.
Yeah, not dry. Nice little smoke ring. Happy. Yeah.
I didn't cook my bird this year, but I did T2. I always do a T2. If I don't have Thanksgiving at my house, you did T2?
Yeah, just
did you do your
leftovers?
You did your T2 before or T2 after?
After.
Yeah, I did it. Yeah, I did it on Sunday. I wasn't going to do it because everyone who was coming over had already been at Thanksgiving. So I had a 22-pound turkey in my fridge. I bought the freezer. I got it frozen, put it in my fridge the day before Thanksgiving. Sunday still frozen. And every year I'm like, I'm never again going to bone a frozen freaking bird. And then here I was doing it again. I did my typical bone the whole sucker out. This time though, by the way, Knipex or Knipex, however you pronounce it, the Cobra pliers, not the ones I normally use, the plier wrench, they're smooth, but the Cobras, which have the serrated thing, are much better than vice grips for pulling leg tendons because they don't snap shut each time, but their grip is immense. So I just sit there and most of the time my pointer and my thumb are good enough to hold on to the meat section. And then the Cobras grip onto the tendon, I rip the pin bone, the feather bones, whatever you call them, the calcified tendons out, and that's the real money. Yeah. So that you can eat the leg meat, and then also if you butterfly out the legs, right, then they cook to a higher temperature, but basically at the same time as the breast. So it's big money, big money. And I did my standard where I made the big plug of my mom's stuffing, put it in the Anova, steamed it until it was cooked through, and then draped the bird over and crisped it up. So money, big money, cash money. Yeah. Yep. Now I have leftovers.
Yeah.
And so much gravy. People who don't bone their turkeys, how do you make gravy?
Yeah.
How do you make gravy? Where's your gravy coming from? You buying a bunch of necks? What are you doing? You buying gravy in a box? What are you doing? Anyway, what about you guys? What do you do, Steve?
It was non-traditional, and I made, it's called aquacota. It's a Tuscan seafood stew. My friends and I all work in the food service, so everything's leading up to Thanksgiving to the point where we're totally burnt out. It was just the three of us healing instead of indulging in Thanksgiving. It ended up being very fun, but and I love turkey. I have nothing against Thanksgiving food. It's just we were so sick of Thanksgiving by the time it actually came. They run the Fatted Calf, which is a charcuterie company here in Northern California, and everything was about getting people their turkeys, and we were all just burnt out.
All right, so for the record, I'm marking Steve Sando down as a Thanksgiving hater and a turkey hater. No, I'm just kidding. I'm messing with you.
No. And I love turkey. I really do. But there's something about the pressure. It's like when you go to New Orleans, you have to have a good time, and you end up having a good time. But that pressure, same thing New Year's Eve, you have to like scream, "Oh, thank God the year's over." It's like, I don't care. I'm sort of, when it's obligated to feel something, I tend to be a rebel.
Yeah,
so,
you know who doesn't have a good time in New Orleans? Nastasia the Hammer Lopez. Only person ever goes there is like, nope, never going back. True or false, Stas?
I went last year with Peter Kim.
Oh, that's right. And did you have a good time that time?
I did.
Oh, nice.
I think it's just
it's just the company when you were with me that made it bad.
Yeah.
All right. By the way, was that seafood stew? I can't remember the exact variant of the seafood stew with beans that you have in the book, but was it that one?
No, there are no beans.
Oh, no.
So it was
wow.
It was a rebel, just
double rebel.
living large.
Double rebel.
Exactly.
So since you come from the land of my favorite seafood, tomato-based seafood stew, which is the cioppino, like how does it compare to that?
My friends had got some cod that they caught, and I had frozen wild shrimp. So I only had cod and shrimp. Where I think cioppino, you really have to work a little harder, and there's crab, and it's a little more interesting with the food. But I really wanted to do what I had on hand, and I had frozen fish that my friend caught and frozen wild shrimp. So I'm not very inspired, but it was delicious.
All right. And Stas, how was at your parents' house? How dry was the turkey this year on a scale of rocks to dust? Where were you?
Dust.
Every year I'm like, Stas, what are you going to do? She's like, I'm going to have the dry turkey.
My dad was like, have to take it out at 165. And I was like, okay, it's been in for 3 hours. Can I check it? And he's like, it's got 2 more hours to go. And I was like, can I just check it? And so I checked it, and it was 220. And I was like, pull it out.
Excuse me. Oh, Jesus. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. So, like, literally, like, when you're slicing it, does it just fall into crumbles? Is it like turkey floss at that point? Like, what's going on?
You just, like, you wrestle with it. It was so bad.
Like,
and they all buy, like, the 25-pound turkey, and there's, 3 of us. So it's yeah.
Can mayonnaise save it on a sandwich? Could gravy save it on the plate?
That's my favorite part. Is the next day we make this like a green onion mayonnaise, and it's great. So,
green onion mayonnaise. Like you chop them fine and mix them in, or you blend them in so that the whole thing gets kind of like a greenish tone.
You blend in garlic and green onion and mayonnaise, and then there you go.
I like that.
That's your special. Yeah,
I like that. So we have a little bit of contention in my house. Jen prefers the hot open face sandwich with the gravy, and I'm a cold turkey, lettuce, tomato, mayonnaise, pepper guy, mustard. Anyway, Jack, what about you? What was your Thanksgiving like at your brother's house, who couldn't care less about Thanksgiving, yet invites you to fly across the country to enjoy rotisserie chicken from the supermarket?
Wow.
I'm just saying.
Hey, he cares. It's just, he works a lot and has new kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Whatever.
Yeah.
How
It was good as,
All right.
It worked out. It worked out.
Did you make or bring anything or buy anything or what?
No. Thanksgiving's gotten a little tricky for my family, but it worked out.
So get this, on the day of Thanksgiving, I was going to my brother and sister's house, my brother-in-law and sister's house, but I forgot to get dog food, so I needed dog food. So I had to go to the store. One store was open in the neighborhood. Literally everyone who walked into the store felt compelled to say out loud, to nobody in particular, just getting a few last-minute things. I'm like, you don't need to tell it. We're at a store. I don't care what you're getting. You don't need to say this. You know what I mean? It's like, but everyone was like, I'm not that guy, last-minute shopper. I just need a few last-minute things. I'm like, all right, my guy. All right.
You are that last minute shopper, though.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't say anything about it. I know I am. I'm like, I'm getting some dog food. You know what I mean? I have to get the fine, fair dog food. Probably get my dog sick. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I know, Quinn, that you guys have a different Thanksgiving because Canada. But did you do anything? Did you do anything to mark the day?
No, I was just enjoying the day off.
Yeah. All right. All right, so nothing else happened besides Thanksgiving and the week's festivities for food, right? That we need to get into? Not much? No? No? All right. So I brought with me on the day after Thanksgiving, only John and Joe can taste this, but like I've said on the air many times that I love a Virginia peanut. Yeah, legume, but by the way, one of the few legumes that even though boiled peanuts is kind of like a bean, you never really have like a bunch of like soft, you never eat like a big bowl of shelled boiled peanuts. You know what I mean?
True.
What do you think? Do you think it's because they don't have a skin, Steve? Because they break in half? Why? What do you think?
I had boiled peanuts once, and I thought frog was going to come out of it. It is the murkiest, most unattractive brew.
Yeah.
I don't understand them.
You have to kind of wrap your mind around them to love them. You would never associate them with like that bean life. You know what I mean? And I guess they kind of grow
or pleasure.
Yeah, they're a ground. I mean, they're not really like. I mean, all the beans that we eat kind of grow above ground, and these are kind of like earth beans, right? So I guess they are different in that respect.
Very, yeah.
But anyway, so I've said this on the air many times, but Virginia peanuts, even though I've been told by people that they don't only grow in Virginia, and that's the variety, they're God's peanut. And I went back to the store where I originally bought them, told the guy at the counter the story where I complained, I asked about the price and he took it as a complaint and told me not to buy them, which made me buy them. And the guy today was like, well, I don't know why he told you that. He should have told you to buy them anyway. But I brought some so that other people could also see whether or not they agree that this is God's peanut. Of course, I buy plain salted because, like you are, Steve, with your beans, you don't need a lot of like weird flavors on top of your peanuts, do you? You don't need like not that I dislike a weird flavor on top of a peanut, but if you really want to enjoy the best peanut you can buy, why would you gussy it too much? People tend to gussy things too much. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's a good peanut, right?
Very good peanut.
They're afraid of their taste. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You think that's it? You think people are afraid that like there's going to be too plain and they can't just rely on the ingredient they've bought and that's why they gussy things up too much?
Well, I think especially if you're a novice.
I'm in general, which is weird because I'm usually all like teched out. I'm usually anti-gussy on ingredients, which freaks people out when they come to like work at the bar and they want to put like a billion ingredients into a drink. And I'm like, how about like 3?
Ooh.
You know what I mean? How about like 3? But you work real hard on it. How about that? All right. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about this book. Oh, I have a question. Should we do the listener question? By the way, Patreon people who listen to this show or heard you on your last appearance will remember famously that Steve Sando has never once, not once, entire life, been in the business over 2 decades, never once provided a discount on a bag of beans. Not once. Because...
that's so funny. Yeah. I don't remember that, but yeah. Still true.
Yeah. Because, what the hell? Buy the beans. You know what I mean? Like, you'll discount other things, but not the beans. You know what I mean? Anyway. So I don't know what made me think of that. Oh, yeah, I know what made me think of that. So Patreon listeners aren't going to get a discount on Rancho Gordo beans. However, Quinn, did we set up for the book on kitchen arts and letters?
We sure did.
Yeah, so Patreon listeners can get a discount on the Bean Book with how do you like working with authors, by the way? Is it, with writers to help you out? Do you enjoy that or disenjoy that?
Me?
Yeah.
Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love writers. No, I love that. And Kitchen Arts and Letters is one of my favorite places on the planet. So I love that you did that.
As it should be. We need to get Matt back on for like a holiday, whatever, buying thing, especially while there's still time to ship. Yeah. Because Steve, the person you wrote this with is Julia Newberry. You did several books with her, right?
Oh, right. Well, she's actually the general manager at Rancho Gordo.
Really?
And her background was with cookbooks before she started with us. And she's a young mother with two, school-aged kids. So she's a natural. And I tend to be simpler, like you. And it's like, why do you need a recipe book? Just look up and shut up. But she's like, no, we need recipes. And so we work really well together.
Well, the interesting thing about this book, specifically on recipes, is that while you do have a lot of recipes that appear to, come from, you and like Rancho Gordo life, you also have a whole bunch of recipes from like your buddies and well-known people, or even people that you might not like hang out with personally, but whose recipes have had an impact on your life, or use your beans. And so I think that's kind of really interesting that you have a very wide scope of recipes, more than you would get if they come strictly from like one or two people's heads. Does that make sense?
Total sense. And I am absolutely adamant that what I'm doing is the best way to do everything for everybody. But when you get these different perspectives, you just like, oh, maybe I'm not quite so right about stuff. But
yeah,
I have my specific way of doing it, and it's just great having other people come in and say, this isn't always the best way.
Right. So
the best way for me.
Bone to pick. I'm going to pick it right now. I know that you said again last time that you are not a fan in general of New England style baked beans, right? It's fine. Right. But in your recipe,
he knows my silence.
Yeah, fine. It's fine. In your recipe and a little back of the hand on the famous beans that are used for, you're like, whatever, yellow eye, it's fine. It's good canvas for a ham hock. Okay. Insult taken, gauntlet thrown, fine. But you just say molasses, and there's no such thing as just molasses. And 99% of the people are going to buy the wrong molasses. They're going to buy trash can molasses. I'm going to get in trouble for calling it trash can.
Point. I accept your criticism.
Yeah.
And I should delve deeper into it, but every time I have, it's like, I don't get it. This is so much work for a dish that doesn't pay off for me.
Fair. That's fair.
I don't dislike it, but it's like, that seems like you have these beautiful fresh beans, and then you put molasses or syrup or something in it that's going to stop them from cooking, because you want to cook it for a really long time. And I think the whole point is you cook it while you're out chopping down maple trees or something. I don't know why you do it.
Well, they cook them for
I think the whole point,
like 8 hours. Like, but they're usually par cooked, right? So you par cook them.
Yeah.
And then I add dry mustard powder because I don't want to add any acid. And then I add the sugars, I like the molasses early. And then when they are, just about done, then I'll add a little acid to arrest them and then throw them in a low oven forever. For like 4 more hours or something like this, 4 to 5 hours. You can do it too long, like 12 hours, too much. But hey,
I'm old. I don't have all that extra time anymore. There's other dishes.
Yeah, baked beans for me are. I get up in the morning, and before I, take the dogs out, I start it, and then like it's done at dinner time. You know what I mean? Like it just sits around in my pot. By the way, I just bought. I know that you're a low-fired La Chamba pot fan, and I had never owned one. Got one on the eBay. Enjoy it. I enjoy it.
It's really fun. And then, unfortunately, it's a gateway drug. Every time you travel now, you're going to discover clay pots from other countries. And every major cuisine knows that you cook beans in clay pots. It's from the French, the Italians, the Mexicans, in the Middle East. It's really fun. It's kind of a drag bringing it back on a plane.
Yeah, I have space for the one. I have my New England bean pot, and then I have my La Chamba, and then like I don't have any more room for anything or I'll get in trouble. You know what I mean? Like I got a 2-quart, which is good for 1 pound if they're par cooked. And then I got, my La Chamba is the 375 bean pot. Anyway, whatever. But what's interesting to me, and you mentioned it in the book, is that it's very counterintuitive that like high-fired ceramics like stoneware, ironware are much tougher in terms of like taking abuse, but also less tough when it comes to like putting on a flame. So you want the low-fired, quote unquote, more fragile item goes on the flame, whereas the stronger one will break. It's weird, right?
It is weird. And you can imagine breaking the ceramic, and if it's white, you shouldn't even really be cooking with it necessarily because it's just so high-fired that it won't take the heat.
Yeah, which is strange. It's odd. Yeah. Anyway, but the La Chambas are nice. Okay, here's a question. Oh, by the way, I think I asked you this last time. I don't remember what you said, but I'm going to ask you again. You ever mess with like, and again, I know you're not an East Coast bean guy, but you ever mess with like Marfax? I really think Marfax is an interesting bean. It's one of those Maine beans that has a weird texture. It's a very firm bean, even when it's cooked.
I've heard of it, but no. We do, I think right now, 35 varieties. So there are just hundreds more that we could be pursuing. And I'm not really a business person or even an ag person or even a chef, so I don't know why I'm on the show, but I do think if it doesn't interest me, I've had a hard time with it. So I definitely will try those, but I've had people say, oh, you need to try this bean. And if I don't have a personal connection, it's really hard for me to sell it. And I love our beans. They're like my children. So that's easier. But I will look into Marfa.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you're going to...
odd texture.
Yeah. I'm not saying you're going to love it. I'm just saying it's like a hyper-regional bean that like doesn't leave its kind of area. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like...
love that. Yeah.
Speaking of beans, so I buy your beans because I still like to buy things in person, food especially, you know what I mean? So I get your beans at Essex Formaggio on Essex Street, strangely, in Lower Manhattan. And I asked them because going in the book, you mentioned again, and you'd mentioned them before, the eye of the goat beans, the ojo de cabra, as being like, kind of like the Jesus bean broth. It's like, so good, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, yo, I've never seen you carry these things. And he's like, yo, we haven't carried them in years. I even look at his catalog and we can never get them. So are they going to exist again? Or these only go to like, trusted friends and relatives out there on your coast?
Yes, we will have them again. We, in fact, had probably 3 bad years of crop failure. We finally realized it's probably our seed stock. So we pulled some and we're creating new seed stock from that to do well. But we also, in the meantime, found some in Italy, not called that. But it's like, this is eye of the goat. This is great. So we actually grew them, but they're slightly different. They're just as delicious, but they are slightly different. So we're marketing this as Occhio della Capra. So I had to go, but in Italian.
Oh, I see.
And those are actually on the website right now. We don't have enough to offer wholesale yet. We're working on it.
All right, so I can't get them at Essex Formaggio yet, but look out, someday.
No.
Someday I'll be able to get them. All right.
Well, someday. And probably the true eye of the goat, not this Italian variant. But for now, on the website, we have the Italian.
Eye of the Goat would not have been as good a song for Rocky III. Do you agree? Not have been as good.
No, I think I'd finally go see the movie. Yeah,
you never went to see that movie?
Go to the movie?
You never went to see that movie?
I don't want to. Yeah. I live in my own little Ethel Merman bubble. I love Ethel Merman unironically.
I mean, listen,
no, I'm not.
You don't know me that well, but Nastasia can attest that every once in a while I'll break out into There's No Business Like Show Business doing the full Ethel Merman. True or false, Stas?
Yeah, I mean, there was a time in like 2008 or 9 where we were trying to set you up for Broadway casting stuff.
Yeah, to be like, an Ethel Merman impersonator. But it's like, I mean, her voice is iconic. You know what I mean? Like, she defines the belt. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I love that
everything's coming.
Yeah. No.
Oh, my God, everything's coming up roses. Oh, my God.
Come
so
on, do
good.
it.
No, I'm not going to do it. Not going to do it.
Come on.
No, I'm old and out of shape. Not going to do it. Not going to do it. Anyway. We all know that she's great. Although, you know what's funny? Like, I guarantee you that there is a bunch of people in their 20s who are like, well, who's Ethel Merman? And I'm like, and they're like, but that's before my time. It's like, but I say this all the time. We knew so many people who were from before our time. Ethel Merman was before our time.
Yeah.
Even. You know what I mean? We still know who she was.
Way before. In the 30s she started.
Oh, my God.
No, Rancho Gordo is the same thing, or I'll quote some Joan Crawford or Betty Davis line just because I like to do that. And they're like, who's that? I was like, oh, or Valley of the Dolls even.
Oh, yeah.
Like I can do a couple of the scenes in that and the kids today.
Wasn't that written by
I do it
Ebert?
for them.
Didn't Ebert write that?
He wrote, I can't believe I know this, he wrote Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, the Les Myers sequel.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, back to beans. Back to beans. Oh, by the way, before we get back to the question, so one thing that they did have and I encourage people to buy it now. Every year I wait till it's too late. Not this year. So in my family, we don't do lentils at New Year's. Do you do lentils, Joe? I look from the look on your face that you look like a lentils family. You do it with cotechino or no cotechino? Just lentils. All right. Lentils for money. Got it. We are black-eyed peas in my family. Where you do the black-eyed peas. What about you, John?
Lentils.
Lentils,
Yeah.
Stas, Jack. What about you? You being on New Year's cruise?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, if it's possible.
And what do you?
Black-eyed.
Which you black eye? You're a black eye guy.
Yeah.
Nice. Quinn, I know you have a theory on this. You got to go lentil. I bet you go lentil.
Yeah. My dad, or dad's side of the family definitely does lentil.
Do you do the cotechino or no?
Wait, that is the sausage?
Yeah. That you cook in with the lentils. Okay. Get your dad
I don't
this
think
year.
we get a specific
Gotta go
sausage.
Come on,
We
man.
just get generic.
You're Mr. Specific. How about this? What about this year? Have you ever done zamponi?
Describe it.
Okay, so here's what you do.
Sounds familiar.
You have to get from a real butcher. You can't just go to a store. You get from a real butcher a pig's trotter, like whole, like all the way up to like the elbow joint, right? And then you keep the skin kind of together and you remove all of the meat out of it, right? The bones and everything. And then you stuff it with cotechino mix. And then you sew it shut. You're supposed to age it for a little while. Right? And then you boil it, and then you serve that with the lentils. Zamponi. It's good. Not Zamboni, Zamponi. Anyway, so like, but that's like classic. I've only done it a couple of times. I had an Italian chef who he came over and did a residency at the French Culinary Institute, and man, he taught me how to sew one up. It was fantastic. Anyway, black-eyed peas. So what I would recommend to anyone listening who is a black-eyed pea person, go get your Rancho Gordo Lucky 2025 black-eyed peas now, because I'm assuming they're going to sell out. Even like garbage can, I shouldn't say, even like commodity black-eyed peas sell out at my local supermarket like before New Year's. You know what I'm saying? And by the way, a commodity black-eyed pea is still good. Can I just say that? A commodity black-eyed pea is still good. Still very good. They're delicious, especially once I do what I'm going to do to them. Yep.
You know what I do for New Year's Eve?
What do you do?
I invite Peter Kim out to L.A. and he stays in Jack's house and makes a mess.
I like that. So he like grinds black-eyed peas into Jack's couch. Yeah. And then
Hey, Jack.
Didn't he
Jack.
one year like buy you some cleaning supplies so that you could clean up the mess he made and leave him there?
That didn't happen to me.
Little note.
He had a cleaning lady.
He left Jack that bottle of wine that was like 3% ABV sweet red wine.
Chateau
as a
Diane.
Thank you.
Chateau Diane. Oh my God, Chateau Diane. I can't even believe they sell that stuff in California because you can buy real wine in a liquor store there. You know what I mean?
Anywhere.
It's like, yeah, I mean, in a grocery store.
Great wine. Yeah,
There's
great
a-
wine anywhere.
There's a whole, for those who live in New York, there's a whole subset who don't live in New York. In New York, you can't buy real wine. You can buy beer here in a grocery store, but you can't buy wine or liquor. And so there's a whole set of like fake wine that's, wine plus water and sugar or whatever it is. And the one that I always see at the checkout is Chateau Diane. You know what I mean? It's a step down from Boone's wine, if you remember Boone's wine. Anyways, nice. But anyway, are you going to sell out of them black-eyed peas? Probably, right?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
And some of the screw's taking this too casually. I think a nation is counting on you to eat black-eyed peas on January 1st. I think some of you haven't been doing your part, is all I can say.
Yeah.
And they're delicious. And I think if you had black-eyed peas, it's for good luck, and then you have collard greens for literally money, which isn't as altruistic, but they're both important, I think.
Yeah. So black eyed peas are okay. So but we'll go through this. Like, there's the different genuses of beans, right? So like there's the our side of the world beans. Well, I hate to say what's the correct way to say New World nowadays? Western Hemisphere
I
beans?
say indigenous to the Americas.
All right.
You say indigenous to the Americas.
Right, the whole Phaseolus Megillah, right? and then
Family, yeah,
and then
exactly.
you got your favas, you got your vinas, which are like black-eyed peas, lentils, mung, red beans, all that, and then you got your chickpeas over there on the kind of African, Asian, European side. But your heart is in the American beans, correct?
Yes, I would say so. But I have a weird love of garbanzos, chickpeas, and then I've just discovered lentils that are, if I can rant a bit, there's this area in Germany that had really crummy soil, so all they could grow were lentils, and they had an indigenous lentil that was doing really well, an adapted lentil. And then once the soil got better, they cut the lentil production, and these lentils were lost. Well, now a group is growing them again, and they're the most delicious lentils. We're going to look into importing them because it's saving this tradition that really was about to die, and just say probably with home gardeners.
What's the name of the lentil?
Now they're doing this production. It's in German, so I don't know. Lentilhagen, I don't know. Sorry, that's so rude. I don't know.
And so what's the difference between this lentil and a regular? Lentils are nice in that they cook so quickly. You know what I mean?
It's refreshing for cooking beans. Yeah. It's like, I can just do this without even thinking about it. They're really tiny, so they probably are closer to wild lentils, and they're brown, black, and yellow, and they're just this beautiful earthy mix.
Oh, they come
really fun.
In a mixed color? They come in a mixed color. Huh.
Yeah, naturally, yeah.
All right. Who knew? Who knew the Germans had a lentil?
To whatever wild. Exactly. And when I first started, we do most of our production in California, quite proudly, but we do some in Mexico. And when I was meeting with my friends, who now have become best friends, are there any heirloom beans around here? Oh, no. They're all gone. And that was the mother who said, no, there's one in the village. And now they're experts. So sometimes this stuff is right under our nose and we take it for granted and don't even know. But just like with clay pot cooking, I think there are bean growing traditions almost everywhere because they're easy to grow. The goal was cheap protein for poor people, but the reality is they're delicious and healthy and great. So everybody wins.
So a couple of decades ago, when you were first getting the heirloom stuff, how important were like the William Moyce Weavers of the world and that kind of generation of folks with their seed saving?
Well, for me, it was very romantic. And even though I had no ag background, I just started growing. And they were the ones who saved these seeds. It wasn't commercial companies because as I go on about how much I love my heirlooms, there's a place for cheap commodity beans. It's I don't begrudge them that, but there's also room at the table for something kind of more high end. So when I started growing these and eating them, and it's because of these home gardeners and those guys who saved them, the first time I ate them, it's like, well, these are like pickles, but there's something else going on here. And for me, it was very exciting. So home gardening is what saved a lot of this. And Seed Savers was really where I was starting to get most of my stuff. And there's a company called Native Seeds Search in Tucson also that I did. But
how's Seed Savers for home growers? How's Baker's Creek? Do you sell seed stock or not?
Well, beans are seeds, so you can actually take any of our beans from any of them. We don't do anything to prohibit it, so they're actually a real cheap way of getting beans. And Baker's Creek's great. I buy stuff from them if they have something we don't have. I have a plot here where I'm growing things, mostly from beans that I've bought in travels. And you can legally bring beans into the country when you're traveling. You should declare them because if they find them, they don't like that. But not corn. But beans are safe.
Now,
so I buy them.
Now, commercially versus at home, how big of a plot do I need to plant to get a pound of beans? Like how big is the chunk of dirt that a pound of beans comes out of?
Well, this is why I'm not nervous about people putting me out of business because you need a lot, and you'll get one pot of beans at the end of the season. So that's kind of
right.
that was a lot of work. So, but it's really fun to do, and beans are easy to grow. And if you have kids, there is nothing like putting them in the ground and watering them. And in less than a week, usually, you see the starts come up. And kids are just enchanted with that, and it gets them. They're more likely to eat them if they've grown them, and you can eat them at different stages. So there's a flower that comes, and you can actually eat the flower. There's a little minuscule bean. But once it's big enough, you can eat it as a green bean. And although it is a string bean, so you have to de-string it. And then you can let it go further into a shelling bean. And that's when it's still moist. But for me, that's all infanticide a little bit.
Really? Hold.
Really?
Even with limas? Limas as a shelling bean. Oh, my God. Come on. Limas as a shelling bean?
Yeah,
limas?
no. I'm being silly. They're all delicious shelling beans.
Yeah.
But I think they develop better flavor once they've been dried. I mean, not everyone will agree with me, but I grew up with frozen lima beans in that medley of horrible vegetables that were frozen. And I thought I hated lima beans my whole life. And then I had real ones. For me, they were dried and recooked. It's like, oh, wait, I don't hate lima beans. But I was very invested in hating lima beans. I have no other
I think everybody is. Succotash is straight delicious. If the limas are good and the corn is good, I mean, it doesn't get much better than succotash. Yeah. Oh, speaking of corn, you have a corn stalk. How does that taste? So he just cuts the corn off, saves the kernels for something else, perhaps succotash, and then just boils the cobs.
Yeah.
I've never done that.
It's a good move.
It's good? Tastes good?
Yeah.
Get a lot of flavor out of it?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it because of this kernel that's left on the cob?
I mean,
say it again.
Well, usually when you cut, it's sort of milky, so there still is stuff left on that cob. And I know in Mexico they actually take the silk and make stock out of that and give it to mothers who are nursing, and somehow that is a good thing.
Yeah. Since I'm past that point in my life, how does it taste?
Well, it tastes like corn, so it's definitely not for every dish, but it's delicious.
Yeah. Wait, what were we talking about? Oh, so if I plant, I don't because I don't have any outdoor space. But if I did 10 by 10 feet of beans, I get one pot. You think that's like a pound?
You might get 2 or 3. Yeah.
Yeah, it's rough.
But, it's rough. Yeah, but it's why I encourage people to do it because I know it's going to harm me in the long run.
Yeah.
I had a
People say,
question.
"Oh, I planted." Yeah.
Have you experimented? Are there any of your beans that are particularly good just sprouted, like as bean sprouts, or do they sort of taste similar?
I have had people who want to sprout our beans, and I don't want to discourage anybody, but 201, they all come back and say they're not that much different. So I would use probably good quality new crop commodity beans if you were going to do any quantity. But there's a woman,
Just curious.
and a couple in Oakland who started something called Shared Cultures, and they're actually making miso out of our beans. And that does seem to make a difference. That's kind of exciting.
That's some expensive miso right there. I think
time is more expensive than our beans.
That's true.
Making miso.
I mean, commodity soy is cheap. What's the recipe you have in the book that's not miso related, but reminded me because I love barley miso, but it's the bean burgers have a bunch of cooked barley in it. What's the function of the cooked barley in the bean burger? Just another binder?
Yeah, I think, and it's healthy and it's easy enough to get. So that's from a local pub here in Napa called Norman Rose. And I've had many, many bean burgers, and people said, "Oh, I hope you have a great bean burger recipe." But I'm much like celebrating traditional Thanksgiving or seeing Rocky III or whatever, which were, I was like, I don't. The obsession with the burger shape is a little beyond me. And these are perfectly delicious. I've had them there and we cooked them, but I'm not obsessed with them. I don't understand why we need things shaped like burgers.
Have you been to Superiority Burger in Manhattan?
No, but they buy a lot from us. They're great. And we, during COVID, when they were in trouble, we helped with their fundraising because I just love what they're doing.
Well,
is it good?
Very good. If you ever come out, you should go to Superiority Burger. They do a good job. So
for sure.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
offhand comment you made in the book that I don't understand. You like air circulating in your pots when you're cooking beans. What do you think the function of that is? I'm a firm believer in more water than you think, which is why I think the pressure cooker, because it doesn't reduce. I think beans need some reduction in liquid as they're being cooked. But like, why do you think you need air at the top? That's kind of struck me as I didn't understand.
Well, because you're more science based, and I'm an emotional cook. I don't know. I just noticed there's something about the air that's really nice. But I always cook my beans either a jar or at some point without the lid, because I think you're right. The reduction is more important than anything. I think I've seen people fill the pot up to the brim with liquid and beans, and it makes me nervous because the beans could boil over easily if you weren't paying attention. And it should be, in my head, based not on science, 3/4 product, beans and water, and then at least 1/4 for the air. But that's not based on anything.
Yeah, I mean, I always give myself some room on the initial boil, but I'm usually transferring to a bean. I'm usually potting and then into a bean pot. Anyway, whatever. Just question. The other thing is like, it is true. You say don't worry about adding. I totally agree with this. Like, it doesn't matter whether the water is hot that you add or not. It's just going to take a little longer to cook. That's for sure true. Although, the one thing that you're going to say is like, you do add your salt after they're mostly cooked because you're kind of worried about it. I always add my salt straight at the beginning. A pound of beans takes between 10 and 12 grams of salt, depending on all the other adjuncts, like how much onions and other crap you add to it. So you can safely add 10 grams of salt to a pound of beans and not worry at all. No matter how dry it goes, you're going to have to add a little more salt by the end. You know what I mean? So like I always just add 10 grams of salt right at the beginning in the soaking water. Another thing is like, I love how in the book you're like don't want to get into it. You're like, throw away the soaking water, keep the soaking water, whatever. People have different opinions. But I will say we measured it once. We did a project at Harvard, and we measured it, and very little of the FODMAP 40 principles end up in the soaking water. So might as well use it. You know what I mean? Also, very little's leached out. So if you throw it away, it's also not that big a deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Harold McGee on Food and Cooking talks about that, and it's so minimal that you think you're doing something. But I think, again, some people really want to pretend that they're helping.
Yeah.
So they like, okay, I'll change the water, and I'm cooking. Look at me. People are very adamant, and I think part of it is a lot of home cooks think, well, I can't cook beans; they're really hard, and I can just buy the can. That's fine. And when they finally do it and they have success, it's that this is the way it has to be done. And so you'll find bean people are very adamant that their way is the way to do it. But a lot of roads take us to Rome. So you just smile and say, oh, good for you. That's good. I'm happy that worked. But they're very adamant. But martini drinkers are the same way. It's like how you make it martini.
Yes,
so
yes, they are.
Have to be patient.
Yes, they are. I did a bunch of side-by-sides, and canned beans are an interesting problem, right? Because they need to get almost all of their absorption in before they go in the can, because they need to fill the can. The can needs to be full when it's done, right? So I used to know exactly what the process is, but if you side by side beans from a can versus beans that you cook fresh, even if you just use salt and water, no aromatics, no nothing, the beans that you cook fresh are so much better. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just like straight up.
Yeah.
And a rinsed
and
canned
you have all
bean
that free soup.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but you have all that free soup when you make them yourself too. Whereas with the can, you need to rinse them.
Yeah, I'm going to start maybe cooking a little wetter, because I usually cook it wet and then I reduce it down to like almost like very thick syrupy stuff. But you seem to be a big fan of leaving the broth relatively thin, draining it and using it for another application. Maybe I'll try that.
And rice, you've never made better rice, I'm saying, when you use bean broth and water. So bean broth itself is a little too much, but you cut it in half. And I have lots of it in my freezer that I've saved and use it.
Well, I'm going to try it. But we have a caller calling in. Caller, you're on the air.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Josh from Norfolk.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing well. So first off, just want to say, Steve, the Scarlet Runner is a life-changing bean. So thank you for bringing that into my life.
Thank you.
And then on the topic of, soaking water and stuff like this, I appreciate that it doesn't matter either way, but should beans be rinsed just from like a food safety perspective, like you would do with rice?
Oh gosh, yes. And they should actually, even though ours are triple cleaned and it's pretty rare you'd find any debris, most of the cleaning happens in the field. That's why you get little pebbles or dirt clots. So you definitely should rinse them and check through them, even if they're ours or someone you trust. It's there's nothing worse than getting a dirt clot. It's pretty rare, but it's not good. But you do want to rinse them. And also we've had celiacs, people who can't have any gluten, really thrilled that they can buy beans because you rinse them. So even if they were stored in wheat, if you have to rinse them well enough that you would not have any of the leftover stuff. But yes, no, definitely do rinse them. That's what I would say.
Okay, awesome.
I agree. And by the way, a dirt clot, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but it's going to be about the size of a bean because it means it's gone through the classifier.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. No, for sure. And one thing I was going to say about the scarlet runners, what's so cool is we know that those are from Oaxaca. They were Mexico, and they were one of the first cultivated plants. So it's Phaseolus coccineus, and it was cultivated. And when the Spanish came, they were sort of shocked at how they were growing this bean. And the Mesoamericans were really advanced as far as agriculture. So it's kind of a fun one. And I think it's a gateway for people who love meat. It's sort of beefy, I think. So if you're trying to cut back, I think this scarlet runners, the ayacote, any of those runner beans are great meat substitutes. And I'm not saying whether you should or not. That's up to you. I don't want to get preachy about meat.
Is there any general difference between runner beans and common beans in terms of like skin thickness or flavor or use or no? Is it just variety by variety?
Oh, no. Well, they're very different. They tend to be bigger. And when you're growing them, a pole bean, has tendrils that wrap around naturally. The runner beans need a little help if you want to stake them, although they do have long runner shoots. But they tend to be bigger. They tend to have thicker skins, and they are ready at one point, and they're really nice. They're sort of like a russet potato, but then you push them just a little further, and suddenly they taste like dairy. They're amazing, and they all tend to have pretty good broth. I can't think of a thinner-skinned runner bean off the top of my head, but it's really a great variety. But they do need a little cooking, and I don't generally soak, but if it was Sunday morning and I knew I wanted beans, as soon as I wake up and make coffee, I probably would put the beans on the soak and let them soak for an hour or two before I was going, just to be sure.
Right, because the big ones with the thicker skins, sometimes like cooking them without soaking them, the skins just blast off even before they get al dente, right? Like they just it's weird, like they differentially inflate, and then, I don't know, they freak me out. And then you see these beautiful beans like all busted open, makes me sad.
Except for you have a fabulous broth now. It's probably even richer.
All right. That's fair.
Bean has sacrificed itself for your broth love. Yeah.
All right, we have a question in. Wait, Josh, you got more questions?
There's no wrong answer, though.
Is Josh still on the phone? No? All right. Well, all right. So WTS has a question. Yeah. I'm currently reading through the Bean Book. One of the early sections that caught my attention is titled Bean Cooking Strategies, page 28. It suggests cooking a pot of beans on a Sunday and then continually adapting and incorporating beans into different dishes throughout the week. As someone who is often cooking for one person, this approach to beans is really attractive. I'm curious if you, Steve, have any additional bean strategies to share, any tips for maximum variety, or is there a type of bean that really shines with this cook it once, use it several times approach?
Well, I live alone most of the time, but I host a lot. But I tend to do half a pound. And even though it takes a long time, a half a pound is about the right amount. No, I think you can do this with any bean. And, sometimes I'll do garbanzos. I wouldn't bother with lentils or peas because they cook so fast. But to me, the best recipe of all is a bowl of freshly made beans with some chopped white onion or red onion, squeeze a lime, and then a drizzle of your best olive oil, and ta-da, that's it. So that's what you do the first night. But then the next day, you're working and you're kind of upset and harried, and you're like, I'm just going to make a salad. and you throw some beans in there. Then the next day you have some beans and you think, oh, look, pasta fagioli, we're going to do that this week. Those tend to be better with cranberry or borlotti beans, but not necessarily. You could definitely be creative. And then you probably are close to being done, but if not, you make a soup. And then right when you have that little bit at the end, it's like, I can't do this anymore. I'm sick of this bean. Puree it. I love to put anchovies, capers, and olive oil and puree it and make a dip. And then you get started with a completely different bean. So I tend to do white beans one week and then dark beans the next, or chickpeas after that. So it's very easy to do. And then in the back of the book, we have, I think we call them toppings. I'm not really sure, but if you make romesco sauce or pesto or something else, you just have a bowl of beans and put a plop of the stuff in it. It's like, oh, that's great. I'll have bread and a salad and I'm done. So it's a strategy of what to do with a pot for sure. And you can think about it. And also do base your shopping. It's like, okay, I'm going to make cranberry beans this week, so I have to make sure I have pasta. Beans and greens is a great thing. Maybe I'll pick up some chard at the store. So it's instead of, I think what was driving me crazy is I actually bought a book on Thai food, which was really well done. It's really delicious. And I'm looking through the ingredients. It's like, I'm never going to do this, or I'm going to buy all this stuff for this one dish, and then I'm just going to sit in my pantry until I need to throw it out. Whereas I think with what you have and thinking about the week ahead, and there's nothing wrong with Thai food. I'm not critical of that, especially but maybe you need to make. I guess my point is to buy all these ingredients to make pasta fagioli once doesn't make any sense. You're going to be exhausted and you'll never do it. Whereas if you have this pot, it's this handy ingredient sitting in your refrigerator, you keep reinventing the pot. So that's my strategy. Yeah. Then you can do it with any bean.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, speaking of things to do, things to do with leftover beans, refried. Question, because you do low and you like relatively low and slow, right? Whereas like I usually do the exact opposite. Like I'm cranking my pan. I use like black iron. I'm cranking it like 375. I'm putting this stuff in and letting it kind of like caramelize onto the, like kind of stick and kind of get crispy on the bottom, and then scraping the hell out of it and keep doing that until I take it out, doing it in batches, but like very fast. Like I've never tried it low and slow. Have you ever done it fast? Like what do you think the difference is? Because I love that weird kind of char I get from the high heat on the pan. But like, I don't know, maybe I'll try it the low and slow way.
No, I would try that. I'm not, I'm an infidel when it comes to refried beans. So I also, if it's Thursday night and I'm tired, I will get an immersion blender and just blend them. And it's not as good as refried bean, but pureed beans are incredible. And I will find myself, have a tortilla and just dipping it in that and calling that dinner sometimes. And it's absolutely delicious. And the best really is when you have beautiful lard from the Mexican butcher and onions that you've at least clarified so they're soft, and then you mash them so that they they really blend in with the beans as they're dissolving. But no, I would try everything.
I usually have to use olive oil because I'm almost always, when I'm doing like them, have a bunch of vegetarians. I don't want them to not be able to have the refried beans.
It's absolutely delicious. It's very different, and it's a little less traditional, but it's no less delicious, is what I would say.
Yeah. And I also like, strangely, I make the beans for refried beans, so I cook chilies and onions in with the beans. Makes mashing quite easy for me. Anyway, on your Bean Lovers Pantry, talk to me about Mixteca salt.
So in Puebla, which is really near the Oaxacan border, they had these mines that have been there, salt mines, and it is a land salt. And it actually, some recipes you'll see, is usually for making hummus, that you should put baking soda in with the cooking, which really tastes like soap. And if you have relatively fresh garbanzos or chickpeas, I don't see any need to do that, but you can. But it does actually soften the beans, which, we've always had the myth that salt will harden the beans, but the Mixteca salt will definitely soften them. It's not a good finishing salt, but it's a good cooking salt.
Yeah, by the way, when you add baking soda, even marginal amounts, I can smell it when the beans are cooking, and I don't like it. I don't like that smell. And I always add acid to neutralize it after they're done when I have to do that.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think if you bought your beans and they'd been stored in the desert for 5 years, and then you were now to cook them. Maybe that's a valid thing to do. But with ours, we grow them in California. There's no need to that, which is also kind of something interesting. I'm sorry if I'm rattling, but I went to Italy where they grow the Sorana bean, which is what we sell as Marcella, from their seed, and the terroir is really different. So they actually have a different flavor. You should buy both. But they dry the hell out of the beans because they don't want to deal with mold over the winter months. And they have summer rains, and they just have more of a mold issue, which we don't have. If anything, we have a bug issue here. So it was just so funny watching them like, oh my God, the beans are dry. Take them out. I'm like, no, we're going to keep going. And that's why I think in some cultures they say you have to soak. Because with us, I think it's 12% that we let them dry to, and then they're done.
Right. Well, there's a sweet spot.
It's just interesting.
I've read both that making it really, really, really dry is okay. Medium, you don't want high humidity, obviously, or high heat, right? That's going to get an overly hard bean. But you hear conflicting things about extra low, right?
Wow. Well, yes. And also, I would think if there was too much moisture, they would be more vulnerable to weevils.
Oh, God, I hate them.
And it is an agricultural product, so that does happen.
I hate weevils.
Yeah, no, they're not.
Oh, my God.
I love them, as you can imagine. They're really fun. Oh, my God. You got a problem.
Do you know granary weevils, as opposed to rice weevils? Rice weevils have wings. They can fly. So if you have a weevil in your house that's flying, most likely rice weevil. If you have a weevil that's not flying, they're also different colors. But if you have one that's not flying, granary weevil. Only known agricultural pest that has there is no wild in the wild granary weevil. It co-developed with us. It is like a bane for us, just for us. Thanks, weevils.
Yeah.
God, I hate them. And they're real. Yeah. They do. I guess I have had them go when I was a kid. We did. You ever do those when you were a kid? Do the bean pictures where like you go to school and the art teacher hands you all these different color beans and some Elmers, and then you make pictures on cardboard with beans. Yeah, well, I did that once. Yeah. I did a parrot. Still remember it. Did a parrot. I brought it home, and my mom framed it, and then like 6-8 months later, it was just like dust and weevils down at the bottom of the frame, behind the glass, dust and weevils. Awesome. All right. Another thing I never tried. How's this banana vinegar that you guys sell?
Oh, it's wonderful. It's from Veracruz, the state. And when the price of bananas gets too low, or plantains gets too low, they just let them rot and make this incredible vinegar out of it. But it's definitely a banana plantain flavor, but it's not sweet or cloying. And when I grow tomatoes in the summer, sometimes for dinner, I just love sliced tomatoes. Just a very judicious sprinkle of this stuff, and then Malden salt, and it's like that's fabulous to this. With a side of beans.
I do love the Malden salt. I can't seem to find it here, but like one of the wackier recipes, and I don't know why it struck me as wacky, is beans in a gorgonzola sauce. It struck me as wacky. How's that recipe?
Well, I was desperate, and I was going to make gnocchi, and I didn't think, but I got these beans ready, and I do it all the time. And the Christmas limas are also known as chestnut limas. They have a real chestnut texture, so it's not traditional beanie texture. So I felt it worked really well.
Yeah, but I was like thinking about it because you were like, it's like a lot of times, it's like I want gnocchi, but instead beans. I'm like, okay. But I do get it with those kind of like bigger beans. But I was like, all right, fair enough.
No, and really for recipe development, I think of what you would do potatoes. Like, this is about big white beans. I mean, I love taking traditional recipes and twisting them. I think I did a chicken tagine, but I used garbanzos with no chicken. And I thought, oh, this will be cute. It's one of my favorite things on the planet, especially if you love Moroccan flavors.
Oh, yeah. I'm definitely going to do that. I'm going to do that beans in purgatory recipe that you have, which is kind of like, with
yeah.
beans and the eggs in purgatory with the beans. Like I'm gonna maybe do it more shakshuka style. Though Quinn gives me crap about like my shakshuka because I cook my eggs separately, and he's like, well, it's not shakshuka then. So, but I'm gonna do that recipe with the beans in it because that sounds like a really fantastic idea. Do you also put cheese in that? I don't remember. No cheese, right? Non-dairy on that one.
No.
Yeah.
And I think when I was a younger cook, everything was finished with Parmesan, or cheese. I always add cheese. And as I get older, I'm just trying to think, how much can I pare back and still make it incredible?
All right.
And
well,
sometimes you can't.
Yeah,
So
sometimes you can't. Sometimes you pare it back too much.
But, yeah.
But anyway, the book is The Bean Book by Steve Sando from Rancho Gordo Beans. Go buy your beans. Go buy the book at Kitchen Arts and Letters. Steve, thanks for coming on again. We'll see you guys next week on Cooking Issues.
Thank you.